Hi, welcome to Convos and Coffee. Again and again, back to back. I promised you guys. Anyway, I am so excited to be with you today. You asked for this guest over and over and over again, and I am so excited to have her having a coffee and a combo today. Jennifer Morrison, the amazing, wonderful Jennifer Morrison, actress, director, wonderful human being. You all know her because we've been talking about her for a while. Anyway, I just want to I want to welcome her and get her in here and just say hi and give everybody a chance to join. And I hope everyone's doing well today. I didn't sleep so great. I think it was a full moon and I sort of had trouble sleeping, but I'm good. So I'm going to invite Jen. Hold on one second. So somebody wrote, so Ella said, it feels so weird to have you doing a live with Jen. Hi, England. Hi, Germany. Hi, Jen.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, my dear?
I'm so good. How are
Good. I'm
you?
going to adjust this a little bit. Hold on. I don't know about you, but like all these little technical stands and things, I think I've gone through 30 of them. And at some point or another, they all break. And then you're like, wait, it's missing a piece. It's
I
not
know.
holding up. It's
I was really
constant.
excited to use mine today. I've had this thing that just sits on my desk that I was like, oh, I'm actually going to use it today. So
Do you have
I was very excited.
do you have a good one? And if so, could you tell me which one it is?
Yeah, I
Because
think it's a canvas light. It's like a light that could just be a light, or you can like put a little attachment to attach the phone in. I think it's
okay,
called canvas.
canvas.
Anyway,
Oh, good.
it's very pretty.
I'm so happy to see you. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. I
Of course, my
know that.
pleasure.
Thank you. You are. Did you bring coffee
I do.
or
I
tea?
do. I have my coffee. Yes. Yeah.
What's your drink? Oh, I like the heart. What's your drink
Yeah.
of choice?
Usually just an almond milk latte. I used to be more interesting, and then I just got real boring.
I think it's boring. It's healthy. I mean, we almond milk, or I love almond milk, and lately I've been going back to a little oat milk, which I know I hear sort of good and bad about. Right. So, but then I also am like not whole milk, but 2%.
Yeah,
So
yeah. No, I mean, I don't have issues with milk. Oh, geez, I don't have issues with milk. I just like the taste of almond milk,
yeah.
so that ends up being kind of my go-to.
Well, we have an amazing audience here today because
I know.
everyone loves you. And they have literally, when I was like, who do you guys want to see? Everyone was like, Jennifer.
Aw.
So for a long time, so I'm so happy that you're here. I know that you are, well, we're going to talk about work, but like, I know that you have just so many different things cooking. And I have to tell you, first of all, Jennifer and I were at a wedding together
But it
a
was
few
so fun.
so fun some weeks ago. We have to start by wishing a dear friend of ours,
Oh
Kim,
yes, Kim
happy
Hunter, happy
birthday.
birthday! I know. Kim's my
Hap-
manager. She's amazing, and it was her um, stepson who was getting married, and it was so beautiful. It was like just a room full of people who were so loving. It was like I mean, over the years you go to a lot of weddings, and it's not always that vibe. Like I really like I knew you and like a couple other people there, but we didn't know a ton of people, and Jerry and I were just like so impressed with just how much love was in that room.
well, it was a Serbian Greek wedding. I mean, we were holding
Yeah,
hands and dancing in circles. So I think whether you show up, whatever you think you're in for, once you're holding hands and dancing in circles with people, then it brings everybody together. And
totally.
and 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 lots of love to that adorable, wonderful couple, Chris and Caitlin.
Yeah,
Very, very happy for them.
yeah,
So I
they
was
are
happy
so
we got to do
cute.
that. So anyway, happy birthday, Kim. You're
Yes,
adored. She's the best.
she's the best.
Um, you know what's so interesting? We talked about it a little bit. I feel you have done so many things. Like when I sort of was looking up at everything, it's like we've known each other a bit peripherally for
Yeah,
years. And
totally.
so you look at someone, you're in the business, you're doing these things together, but we haven't worked together. But then I remember distinctly when you went and did your first feature film, because there's going to be so many more, your first feature film, and started your company and everything. And then I remember just all of a sudden you were on This Is Us. So I was like,
Mm.
wow, wow, she's she's drawing outside the lines. And I just want to say how much I admire that and how much I just so respect, I mean, your guts to do it.
Oh,
It's not
thanks.
easy. We work in an industry, and a lot of our guests today are from all over the world. So I always do this shout out because you're going to see them coming up here, and it is from India to Mexico to China. I mean, everybody's from everywhere. And so I always say that they don't know what we do, right?
Right,
They
right.
have been watching your beautiful face on screen forever, and they follow you, but they don't know what it means to actually make choices in our career, to do a television series for a long time, then to segue to directing and the difference between that. So I asked them all to send in questions. And so I will throw some of those out at you
Sure.
as we
Hmm.
go. And most of them I will say have to do with, next projects and the difference between acting and directing, and also now managing your work and being a mom.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I mean, let's just start with um first of all, when you graduated college and you wanted to come to LA and decided to do this, like what was that moment? What was that first spark of like, okay, this is what I'm going after?
Well, I mean, that spark was like when I was like 5 years old.
Hmm.
Like it was, I don't know why. I just, I always thought of myself as in the industry, which doesn't make sense. My parents were music teachers, so we had like arts around us, but they were public school teachers, and no one in the family was doing this. But I just was so sure that this is what I wanted to do. And my parents would take me to like line up at Woodfield Mall in Illinois. It's like in Schaumburg. It's like a suburb of Chicago, to audition to be in the back to school fashion show at the mall. This is like back, in the 80s when malls
Yeah.
were big. And 1,000 kids would line up and you get a little number pinned on you. And they only picked 25 kids. And every year for like 6 or 7 years, I was one of those 25 kids. And you'd have to go and do a little dance and do your little turnarounds at all the little spots. And to me, this was like the most important thing in the world, to be in the back to school fashion show, because it was
Of
my
course.
only way to like perform
Yeah.
professionally. And the people who judged this were agents in Chicago, like legit agents in Chicago. So every year when this started, they would kind of approach my parents and be like, "We're really interested in representing your daughter." And I'd be like, "Please, please, please." And as all good parents should be, they were like very skeptical, because they were, you hear all these horror stories of things that happen to kids, or they take your money, or they take the kid and terrible things happen, whatever, all these things. So they were being extra careful. And then as I got to be more like 10, 11 years old, and they saw that it wasn't just like a whim, and I was like so devoted to like really wanting to figure this out, they were more open to trying. They were sort of like, "All right, let's try with this agency, and if anything weird happens, we'll just stop, but like let's just try." But it was always coming from me, like some of these kids who start as kids but their parents are forcing
Yeah.
them, it's a totally different
Oh yeah.
situation. So
I can't
so it
ever
was like,
imagine that, can you? I can never imagine forcing anybody into this.
especially
I'm
a
like,
child.
I
Like I
know.
just,
I know.
ugh. Anyway, so yeah, so it was always coming from me. And it started with like commercial auditions, and then I would do really well because I was like a very talkative kid who wasn't freaked out by adults. Like I was always probably more comfortable with adults than I was with kids. And so I just would
Do
do
you have
well.
siblings?
I'm the oldest. I have a sister and a
Okay.
brother who are younger. Yeah. But I think partly because my parents, this is a whole other story, but because my parents ran a nationally competitive high school marching band, our whole life was about marching band. And I was always like a little kid around adults because of it. So I was either a little kid around teenagers, or I was a little kid around all those teenagers' parents. And I was at all the practices. I was always on the sideline. So I think I just had a lot of adult interaction from a very young age, in a way where that was just a very normal thing for me. So if I walk in a room at 9 years old for a Rice Krispies commercial, I'm just like, hey, how is everybody? Like not shy, not, you
Which
know what
is
I mean?
exactly the kid that you want.
Right.
Like you don't want the kid that's like that you have to kind of peel the onion and get
No.
them to perform. You want that kid.
Right. And like my parents aren't in the room with me and I'm totally fine. I'm like, yeah, no, see you guys later. How are you guys?
That is so funny. My daughter's a bit like that. And it's a funny thing as a parent when you witness that because it's not something that you can make your child do. They
No.
have it either inside of them and they're like ready to go or they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, so anyway, that was how I was. And so I pretty quickly like, did a bunch of commercials and I was in SAG and they started sending me out for films and stuff. And then when I was 13, I booked the film Intersection from a tape that I made. And there were just a lot of lucky elements. I needed to play
Yeah.
Sharon Stone's daughter. I had the right features to look like I could be her child. I was taking dance lessons and they needed the character to be a ballet dancer, a much better ballet dancer than I actually was. Um,
But you
but
convinced them that you could ballet better than
I
anybody.
I got a lot better when they put me in the training that they put me in. Like I actually like grew tremendously as a dancer in that time, but I don't think I realized how bad I was until that situation. I was like, "Oh, I'm a terrible dancer." Um and then that was like, a big stepping stone because it just kind of put me on a different playing field. It put me on a set where I could see what a real set was like. I could be around all these people. And I was young enough to like not really know. I didn't know who any of those people were. I hadn't seen
Yeah.
any movie that Richard Gere was in or Sharon Stone, or
Yeah.
I certainly hadn't seen Basic Instinct
Yeah.
at 13 years old.
Yeah.
And so I was also able to like go on my first set without any insecurities, really. You just sort of be there and absorb it all and see how it all worked. And I was very lucky that Mark Rydell, who was the director of that film, was wonderful with actors. Like he really knew how to talk to me and he knew how to explain to me. I still am like a very expressive person. If I were ever as big on camera as I am in life, it would just never work. And so he was really good at like helping me still be honest but not be big, you
Right.
know.
Right. Well, it seems like, all of these early experiences and all of them have probably culminated to and years on television shows that, beloved television shows like Once Upon a Time and also House, which, I had a little stint on, but we never really crossed paths on that. But I remember and
So
I really, really loved your work on that.
thank you.
And what was I going to say? Yeah, I'm sure that all those experiences of being directed by different people, because when you look at your resume and all the things that you've done, and Broadway as well, let's not forget, you've done stage, film, television, directing film, directing television, like, okay, like what's up, what are you going to do next? So, I mean, but I'm sure that all of that has made you, and I haven't been directed by you, but I made you a very empathic and understanding director of actors.
Mm.
Because I
I
can
hope so.
imagine that,
Yeah,
right?
I
I
mean,
mean,
I like to think so. It's the feedback that I often get, so I'm gonna decide to believe it. But I was actually just having this conversation last night with my husband and his reps. We all had dinner last night, and they were kind of asking me the same question. And I said, it's interesting because it's not like when I'm working with actors, I'm sitting there thinking like, what would I want if I were? It's not that literal. I and I kind of just do this in life in general. It's like when I meet someone, especially, I'm kind of in two conversations. I'm in the literal conversation that we're having, but I'm also in an unspoken energetic conversation. And so I feel like I can feel people in a very particular way. And so oftentimes, like Jerry and I will be talking to someone, I'll walk away and be like, "Oh, man, he feels sad." He's like, he didn't say anything sad. I was like, no, he didn't say anything sad. I could just feel his sadness. And so I
you're an
think because
empath. You're an empath.
I guess, and so it's like because I have that, that's kind of really where I put a lot of my energy when I am working with an actor. It's like my goal is to sort of be everyone's scene partner, but be as invisible but present as possible for someone. So I'm looking to key into someone and just feel intuitively what they're begging me to give them or not give them. You know, some
Yeah.
people, the more you leave them alone and you just let them kind of go and do take after take with no notes, they just get better and better and better, and it gets more and more interesting, and you just don't want to mess with it.
Yeah.
And some people, you know, like I need to kind of really tell them the work that I just saw. I need to say, like, I saw that you did this, and I saw that you were doing this, and I loved the turn at this point, and I love that you were getting really specific here. And then when they see that I am clocking the work they're doing, they relax and it becomes more honest because they don't have to show me the work anymore because I've acknowledged it. So like those are two very opposite
But that is
examples, you know, but
so intuitive, Jen. I mean, I would have given anything in the first 20 years of my career to have had a woman like you having that conversation with me.
yeah,
When I think about being in my 20s and being on all these sets with different directors, mostly male,
yeah.
and no offense,
No,
I
no,
love
no.
men.
Yeah, of
It's
course.
not that, but they were usually older. We're in our 20s, and there wasn't that. They were just doing the job. They were putting the
Yeah,
camera where it needed to be. They'd give you a note here or there. And when I think back, because I think I like blocked so much of the negative stuff out, and then now as an adult, it all sort of kind of floods back to me. And I think about some of the things that were said to me and how I handled it and how I repressed it. It kind of adds up to this thing where you're like, wow, I don't know how I got through that. I don't
yeah,
know how I actually just good soldiered through that moment instead of either cried or ran to my trailer or did some. I
yeah.
probably cried on my way home. I don't remember. But I just remember being kind of, I'm a Taurus. So I like
Oh
it, like when
yeah.
I'm in my work mode, I put my hat on and I just go. And then it might hit me
Later.
later,
Yeah,
days later,
totally.
months
Yeah,
later. I'll have this sort of trigger or reaction and feel really like, oh wow, I'll go backwards and go, did I make a mistake? Did I mishandle that?
yeah,
Did I not confront that?
yeah.
So I just mean to say, I would have given anything to have a woman like you. And I say this even to this day when I see women that come in, I'm like, oh, yay. Now, that doesn't mean that all women
No,
are
no, but
empathetic
also like
or
the
they're
world
not.
is allowing
So,
for women to be more empathetic in those positions because the truth is like, you know, you and I have been doing this long enough that we've been, you know, we were going through this industry way before Me Too and Time's Up and sort of people's awareness of certain things. And, you know, it there wasn't space for that kind of empathy no matter what gender was directing. And so I also found at
that's
that
true.
time that some of the hardest directors on me and on some of the actors were the women directing because they had to be so tough. They
Yeah,
had to be so insanely like masculinely tough to get
right.
through at all at that time because it was not something that people were talking about or supporting or championing or like, so they were, there was almost this like you know, like this armor on them that made it harder to like get to their softer
You're
places,
right.
you know. And so it's interesting that, and I think that was probably true for a lot of the men who were directing. There just wasn't space. There wasn't space in the industry for a lot of empathy.
Right.
And I think we're in a place now where gender removed, there's a lot more space for empathy on a set, for people listening and really hearing what's coming at them, for looking to have an environment where people are gelling, not where people are like under attack all the time.
Yeah.
You know, it was like back in the day, it was like this weird rite of passage that everybody was like supposed to endure some kind of cruelty.
Yeah.
And it was like, to what end? Like, what are we accomplishing here? Like, I agree that people should work hard. I agree that people should show up and be ready to go. But like, you're always going to get your best out of people when you're encouraging them and you're supporting them and you're encouraging them to be their best, not attacking them so they can't possibly be their best. You know, like
I
it's
agree
such a
with you, but
weird thing.
we're in a business of a lot of crazy people. So, like, and by the way, not just Hollywood, like in general, the workplace, and we've been talking all about about workplace environments for a long time, and not just in Hollywood, but
Mhm.
workplace environments, the way that people manage people is different.
Yeah.
Power and their own egos about things. Some people just get off on poking people to feel good about themselves, and that's just the way that it is. And I
Yeah.
think that when I mean, that's not how you are, because you are a decent person, but not everyone is. And some
Yeah.
people, I think, especially in an industry where it's about imagination and play, and then you get money for it, and you get to dress up, and you get to play all these things, it's like people get delusional.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of go, hey, buddy, come on back. Let's just do the scene that's right in front of
Yeah.
us. Like,
Yeah.
this isn't about, but so I really like, I personally, I'm always attracted to people like you who are decent and who love the work. I think there's brilliant artists who are just impossible to work with.
Sure. And
And
but I also, here's what I've also learned doing, with the amount of like directing and filmmaking I've been doing in the last 8 years is that, you know, it, the there the if we want to just like label it something for the ease of having a conversation about it, like the bad behavior comes from somewhere. It's no one wakes up in the morning like the same way. If we were to approach a character, like if we had to play someone who was a quote unquote villain, you don't wake up as that character and go, I'm a bad person, I'm going to do a bad thing. No one wakes up that way. Everyone believes that they're justified, and everyone believes they're coming from a place that is like right for them and is like what's going to be the best thing for their life. So even when people do bad things, it comes from a place that they have somehow justified,
yeah,
right? And so
for sure.
what I have sort of really learned, even with the toughest people, is like that bad, quote unquote, bad behavior is like it's coming from something that happened to them. And I look at that as a director, especially. I think it's tougher actor to actor because there's not much you can do about it when
Right,
you're just dealing
right.
with another tough actor. But when I'm up against that in some way as a director, if I look at it as what has this person been through? What happened to them? What could possibly put them in this headspace? And how scared are they? Because what people don't think about is how vulnerable and how raw an actor has to be to do what they're doing, and how exposed they are, and yet there's no space, like there's no backstage on film, like there's something incredibly comforting when you're working on stage as an actor, that you have that backstage moment, whether it's right before you walk on the stage or those moments where you get to step off. You get to collect yourself when you're not being observed, and that doesn't exist on a set. You never stop being observed on a set, and then it's like, go be brilliant, do the thing, know the lines, do the thing. And some people have the bandwidth to do that without melting down, and some people don't. And it doesn't make them a bad actor. It just means they don't have the tool set to not melt down under that level of exposure and vulnerability. And so I often try to look at sort of like, I try to gauge their level of fear of exposure. And I try to figure out how to give them a safety net and to give them that comfort so that they don't have to feel the exposure so much. And I have found that that has almost completely eliminated some of the issues that people have had previously on those sets. Do you know what I mean? Where they're like, oh, this is going great. And it's like, right, they're just scared, rightfully so. So
Yeah,
I
a
just want to
hundred
make sure
percent.
they feel comforted and taken care of, and then they don't have to feel so exposed. So,
Yeah.
so much I think of this industry, like so many of the things that can be tricky and can be hard come from people not stopping to think about how exposed and vulnerable people feel. And that could go for writers, that could go for executives, it could go for
Oh,
all sorts of
a
people.
100%. I'm for two things. One is I think we need to collect these ideas together and make like a guidebook manifesto to studio executives that they could read, and when they hire people they understand, especially now that it's becoming like this tech business.
Yeah,
They're not going to be thinking, and they're not
no.
thinking the way you think, which is like, what are all those things that happen on set emotionally between an actor, director, actor. So that's one thing. Second thing is, do you know I'm doing a play?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
You told me,
I
yes.
told you. So it's so interesting that you're saying this about that backstage moment,
Yeah.
because that's been my experience
Yeah.
in these rehearsals, and much more so because we go up mid-January, and I'm gonna send you tickets. So if you're in LA, you
Please.
guys,
Yeah, we'll
you and
come.
Jerry can come. And but it has been so illuminating because I forgot that feeling of first of all, there's no camera in my face, so it does not matter. My
Mm.
hair could be in a knot, I could be in my pajamas.
There's no
All
continuity
that
issues.
matters, all that matters is what is happening, what we are connecting to, what we're feeling. And also, something has been happening like this week, specifically in rehearsals with the actors, where we're having new breakout moments and discoveries. And wow, his like I leave completely, my bucket is totally
Yeah.
full. Like I feel like, oh my goodness, I had that moment to just collect myself, to take my moment, to go in, to leave that act behind, move into the next thing. And just that dance with everybody is just beautiful. And it's exactly what you're saying. Like it's something I totally forgot, but it is the reason that I began doing this in the first place. So
Yes.
part of the
Yeah.
reason of doing this play for me was an opportunity came in a play and in a role that I always wanted to do and was not old enough to do. And now I'm like, this is what I've been missing. Like my soul has needed this
Yeah.
recharge of why do we love this? And there's so many moments that, listen, you have a very grounded perspective, but inevitably we end up in situations in any of our workplaces where we have to sit back and say, okay, what's going on with this person? Why are they treating me or anybody else poorly? And how can I manage that?
Yeah.
And so I always say to even my children, you don't know what somebody else is going through. And
Yes.
and most of the time it's coming from fear,
Totally.
right? They're going to say something mean to you. My son played in a soccer game, and some of the boys that didn't even play in the game were making comments to him. And he looked over. He's like, do you even play a sport? Like, what's happening right now? Like, they made kind of got in the car. And he's like, Mom, they all like comments towards me. And I was like, you know what? It's just,
Well,
you
it's also
know,
just like I think one of the greatest lessons in life, and I wish I could have learned this sooner. I think I learned it pretty young, considering, but wish I could have just like come out of the womb knowing this. Is like it's so much easier to go through life when you don't take things personally.
oh, 100%.
It's just like it's like you just said. Everybody's trying their best.
Yeah.
Everybody, you don't know what they're going through. You don't know what day they just had. You
Yeah.
just don't know. And instead of immediately being like triggered by everything that ever
Yeah.
happens and by any word that anyone ever says, it's like we're just trying our best,
Yeah.
And it's like when I stopped taking things personally years ago, my life got so much better.
Yeah.
And then I actually got closer to more people because I realized that I just didn't understand where they were coming from in the first place. And some of the people I might have written off in a first moment or a first interaction because it didn't go great ended up being some of the people closest to
Yeah.
me because we ended up having space to be able to talk about whatever was going on in their life and connect over that,
Yeah.
as opposed to me being like, wait, what? Why are you talking to me like that? I would just be like, oh, hey, what's going on? Are you okay?
Yeah.
And it just completely changed the way that I was able to relate to people and take
Yeah.
people into my life and join other people's lives. So I don't know. I kind of wish we could just share that feeling with people more. It's like you see the world so divided right now and you see people so hurt. And I'm like, man, so much of this, you're just
Yeah.
taking things personally that have nothing to do with you.
Nothing.
So it's,
And also,
yeah.
but listen, there is human nature is one that people like to get involved.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
I've been talking actually to a lot of my girlfriends about this idea of gossip, not gossip in like gossip as conversation,
Yeah,
like using something as just a form of conversation, and how that in itself, it's like,
yeah,
why not do that? Why not just spend our time having real conversations with people about whatever's happening? Oftentimes people divert away from what's actually going on with them to speak about somebody
yeah,
else, even if it's not always bad, but even if it's, oh, I heard this, and then all of a sudden you've dropped into the conversation, it is technically gossip. I mean, by
totally. We're
repeating
all guilty of
something
it.
and,
Yep.
and having a commentary on it. And it's an interesting thing that women come together and you kind of do it. And sometimes it's not in bad intention,
Yeah,
but it is that. And so I've literally said, you know what? Like, I've been so mindful to be like, I don't actually want my time with you spent talking about that person. I'm not interested. Guess what? They're not talking about me. They're not interested. But why am I sitting here talking about them? Like, I don't, I like, and also, I think that karmically, as you're saying, and energetically, when we want to send good vibes into the world, it has to begin with us,
Totally.
right? It has
That's
to
all
begin
we
with
have
us. We have to
control
show
over.
up open, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, so it's a lot of it's interesting because I don't think that a lot of people lead that way that you're talking about. So I super appreciate having this conversation because I don't know that people think that way.
Well, it's also
I just don't.
just like, we're not, there's so many things we don't get taught, right? It's like, it's tricky because I'm a huge, I loved school and I'm a huge believer in education. So I don't want this to come off the wrong way because I believe in the education system. But I think it's tricky because so much of the education system is set up for us to just learn how to think, right? Like, it's not so much that anyone thinks that everyone's going to need math or calculus or chemistry or whatever. Not everybody needs that for whatever career they decide to have. But I appreciate having had to learn all those things because it taught me how to think. It taught me how to problem solve. It taught me how to take on something that I wasn't even necessarily drawn to naturally and figure out how to work my way through it. And I apply that life skill to everything I do. So it's not about the chemistry and it's not about the calculus. It's about the work I had to do to achieve those things and applying that skill set to life, right? And so I think that
Can
that's
I
where
record this for my eighth grader? Because he just asked me, why do I have to go and learn this? And I was like,
teaches
I'm
you how
gonna
to
I'm gonna
think.
record it and we'll just keep it on a loop.
Sure, there you go. But it's true, like I look back on those things. I remember taking like what's geometry, where you have all
Yeah.
the proofs. And there were times I couldn't remember a proof, so I would reprove the proof because I couldn't remember the name of the damn proof. And but so that taught me the kind of problem solving I need as a filmmaker. The amount of times I'm on a set and some weird problem comes at you and you're like, what's the path to the solve? My brain can get to that solve really fast because I could reprove a proof. And it's not actually math, but that wiring in my brain comes from that. You know what I mean? So anyway, I fully believe in all that, but what I wish that the education program also had were just certain life skill things. Like I wish that the high school curriculum had psychology. Not You don't have to wait to college to choose that.
My
I wish that there
son's
was.
school has that, and it's
Oh, that's
and it's
great.
part of the reason we chose the school. But I have to say, it's very, very interesting how so many people undermine that is not an academic thing. But the idea of having life skills, the idea of
Yes.
sitting in a room with a teacher and discussing how you're feeling and relating to another person, not as like, they may not be in your friend group or whatever, but to be able to have a conversation eye to eye and take a beat to breathe as a teenager in this day and age, for me is like the greatest skill ever because it is
Yep.
psychology. It is understanding the brain and emotions and how people relate to each other. I
And
agree
that
with
was,
you.
yeah, it's a long way of me saying, like, if we were taught more how to be curious as opposed to how to just achieve things or get results, then that curiosity would lead to deeper conversations
Yeah.
faster. So much of it is that people will sit with another group of people and they don't know where to start because no one's talked about where to start. But if you were taught to follow your curiosity, then your mind immediately goes to, wait, what is the play that you're in? And how many days are you rehearsing? And who are you working with? What has that felt like for you? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like, as soon as you have that skill set, and it might sound really simple as I'm saying those questions, but if you're someone who's not naturally socially, like comfortable, then you might be a little bit paralyzed in a group of people and then someone starts talking about somebody else and you're like, okay, that's what I'll do because that's where the conversation's going, as opposed to feeling the confidence of, you know what, if I follow this line of curiosity, we're all going to be in a deeper conversation. And I just don't think I think the world is starting to shift more that way, and I think people are more aware
Hope
of being
so.
able to follow their curiosities that way, but I don't think you and I were raised in a time where people were taught those
No.
things. And so it became just trial and error of going like, wait, how do I connect with this person? And what is a question that is a way in to be able to connect with them right now, you know? And that's trickier than it sounds. Like it's easy to say, it's harder to do and to figure out, especially when you're 16 years old, you
Yeah.
know?
It is. No, it really, really is. Sometimes I think about my parents divorced when I was 5, and I just like the way I was raised. I just, I have absolutely looked at things and been like, oh, wow, it's not to anybody's fault. They weren't taught it. So how could they teach it to me? Right. So even as parents, I always tell, and I have some good friends about to have their first child, and I said to them, the most beautiful thing about having a child is that you get to redo that the way you want it. And
Yeah.
hopefully that with every generation, we only grow and evolve on that. And even if we make mistakes, which we will, we can stop and sort of go, oh, wait, that didn't feel good. And I don't actually don't want it to be that way. I would like to do it this or that. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things is that you can rewrite that story
Yeah.
for your kid. And, and that's a beautiful
A
thing.
hundred percent.
Um, so couple of things I want to touch upon before we have to end. One is, um, how is this, well, first of all, and we also have to talk about your absolutely you gush about your beautiful relationship, you and your wonderful hubby. And it's not Jerry's his American name,
Yes.
but it's Gerardo.
Yes.
Am I saying it right?
Yeah, I mean, I think he would be proud of you.
Gerardo.
Almost
Gerardo.
rolled R's.
Gerardo. Gerardo, is you talk about energy. The two of you are just, I mean, and when I say the word beautiful, anyone that knows, I do not mean outsidely beautiful. Yes, you are. But it's really the partnership and just this ease that you have. I'm just so happy for you. Like I'm really, really happy that you guys have found each other, that you are now sharing in this next journey of parenting and partnership. Um, and it just two things is one is I'm married to a Latin man. So
We
we
have a
got
lot
the
in common.
spice. So I just want to say that is fun because you are not from a Latin family.
No.
But like that's fun and saucy and is there anything that you can say
Well,
about
I mean, you
that?
know what? It's interesting to me that we both are married to Latin men, you know, and I think part of that is just that we are, like I hate the word strong women. I don't know a better word for it though, but like we have clear ideas, we have clear morals, we have a strong stance on things where we can be just as vulnerable and down as we can be, you know, confident and up. Like
Yeah,
we're and that is a very vibrant way to walk through the world as a woman. And I don't think that, and I don't know you that well, but I my guess is that like you and I just we are principled in a way that we are determined in our principles, right? And we're not unwavering in them. And so I think it takes a very particular kind of man to partner with a woman like that, you know, especially in our generation. You know, it's like,
yeah,
again, things are changing, but in our generation, the amount of times that I dated people in the past, I literally had someone say to me once who I had dated not that long, but for a little while, he was like at a dinner with me. He's like, "You're amazing, but I feel terrible about myself when I'm around you." And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so supportive. What did I do?" He's like, "No, you didn't do anything." He's like, "I'm being very honest and vulnerable right now and just telling you, I can't, I can't handle this." And I was like, "Oh my
I
God, I didn't even feel like the most vibrant part of myself had even been revealed to him yet." And I was like, wow, okay. I mean, thanks for being honest and like, let's get out of it now. But that, I think that that is like a real thing. And so Latin men are often raised around very strong, principled women and
yeah,
have strong, principled mothers who are vibrant and you know. And so I think for our generation it makes a lot of sense that like women like us would end up with Latin men because they get that kind of woman. You know what I mean? Like they get how to partner into that.
you know what? I so relate to this, and this is like its own episode right now
I know,
because
I
I
know.
think women
It's a
need to
tricky
hear this.
subject, but it's
This is
okay.
this, I opened a can of worms, and this is literally part two of this whole thing because I've been having these conversations even with my daughter,
Yeah,
who is now, 18 years old, and meeting
yeah,
people and men, and it's so true. And I have to say, and just yesterday, I said to a male friend of mine, he was talking about his girlfriend sort of being difficult and you're not difficult. And I looked at him, I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Like, I am a woman with an opinion
yeah,
who lives a certain way. Of course, to many men, I would be considered difficult because they cannot control what that is,
yeah.
right? To my husband, no, he would not say that I'm difficult. He would absolutely
No,
say I'm completely a normal, emotional, complicated, like what normal, whatever normal means. But you know what I'm saying?
sure.
To him, it doesn't feel unusual in any way.
Yeah,
But to many men that I dated, it did, and it made them feel bad.
yeah,
And I always say, even to my daughter, if you are dating, you're with somebody who just wasn't raised that way and used to that, you are subconsciously making them feel bad about where they're at.
yeah.
And it's not your fault. You cannot
No,
slow down
no,
because they
no,
can't keep up,
no,
and you will never, ever, ever be able to change them. Like they
no.
may get there on their own, and will either have that confidence to be with you or they won't. And then they're going
Yeah,
to find somebody who they feel good with, and they deserve to be with
yeah.
someone who they feel good
Well,
with.
the other
So,
thing, yeah, I mean, the other thing that I found, and this is to your very generous point about the way you perceived Jerry and me as a couple, but like, you know, one of the things that I learned as I got older and was dating, because Jerry and I found each other later in life, was that it's not enough to just be attracted to someone. And it's not enough to love someone and be attracted to someone. You have to also want the same life. You have to want to do life in a particular way together.
yeah,
And so you have to be attracted, and you have to be, you have to love that person, but you have to also see life together in a certain way. And there's something about that third element that is so magical, because when you start to click into that together, it doesn't matter. You're going to have conflicts. You're going to disagree about things. You're not going to see eye to eye about everything. You're going to have things you have to work through. All of that stuff is very real. But at the end of the day, you're both still aiming in the same direction. And your goal is, okay, for us, we wanted to have a family. For us, we want to live a certain way. For us, we want to have our families included in our lives in a
yeah,
certain way. And those might sound like really simple things, but not everyone feels that way,
no,
And so, and also for us, our careers are very important. So how do we find the balance between our family and our career, and how do we take care of each other in that balance? If you have a partner who's not interested in that balance, it's really precarious. So
yeah,
it that we've had that extra third magical element, which was that we did desire similar principles in life, in a similar like way that life looked, and that's also something that, like, again, I wish my younger self like had an awareness of, because it's so easy when you're young to feel like when a relationship doesn't work that you failed in some way. And really, when I look back, I was like, oh, the universe was totally just taking care of me. I don't regret any of those relationships. I
no,
learned and
yeah,
grew, and I am the person that I am because I went through those relationships,
yeah,
because those people moved through my life. I had incredible people that moved
yeah,
through my life, but they weren't my person forever. They were my person for that moment. And I could have skipped a whole lot of feeling like, what did I do wrong, or how did I fail at this, if I just was able to accept, like, this was for a moment, not for forever. And like when you find your forever, it's just so obvious. You're like, oh,
oh,
yeah, I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and then even when you, like I said, even when you have tense moments, it never threatens the fabric of the relationship. It's always like, okay, we're on the same team. So how do we work through this? How do we excavate this problem and figure out what's going on and get ourselves realigned on it again?
right.
It's like it's a completely different way of working through
It's
things
a
compared to just
completely
like
different
fighting with
way.
someone.
But
Yeah.
and in our next episode, when we talk about this further, there's this bigger concept, which is that I feel like women and girls often just, I don't know what it is, but our gender just naturally leans into this place of whether it's the maternal caretaking or
Yeah.
fixing. And so oftentimes in a relationship,
if you are, and most women are very capable, we
Yeah.
think, oh, that person has the potential to be all of these things, and I know exactly how I'm going to fix it. Whether it's I'm going to change how he dresses, is something as superficial as that, to I'm going to get him working. I'm going to inspire him to go after that job, and he's going to do all those things. But guess what? It's not really it's not our job to do that. But
No.
many women do that. And so we fall in love with potential,
Yeah.
not who the person is at that moment,
Totally.
but potential.
Completely. Yeah.
And that's a big issue. And I remember somebody saying that to me in my 20s, and it was like this aha moment of like, oh, wait a second. If I actually do just look at this person right now in this moment, arguing with me about having to go to work at 5 o'clock in the morning when they don't have a job, but
Yeah.
they're mad at me because I'm going to work, that,
Yeah.
and not make an excuse for him, but actually look at this behavior, I will very quickly go, oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much, but this is not the right thing.
Yeah.
But instead, we beat
But
ourselves
you
up
know
and we
what?
go, oh, why can't
I
we
think
change it?
I
But
think
there's
that's
no,
exactly what you were saying though about the maternal instinct. Because the truth is, we have to have that in us for when if we, and not all women want to have children, but if you're a woman who wants to have a child, like I think it's like a primal thing that lives potentially in us in terms of falling in love with or believing in someone's potential, because that is what you have to do for your child every second of every day. You know, when they're just first born, you have to believe in them that they're going to hold their head up. And then after they hold their head up, you have to believe in them that they're going to pull up to their knees. And then once they pull up to their knees, you have to believe in them that they're going to crawl. And then you're going to have to believe in them that they're going to walk. And then you have to believe in them that they're going to make it through kindergarten. And then you have to, you know what I mean? So it's like, uh, there is some sort of primal wiring that is, I think, I would probably guess women and men, but for some reason seems to be more at the forefront of women, where like that's in us. So it can be very confusing, you know, when
yeah,
you're dating when you're younger, because you're like, but I have this thing in me. I must need to use it for this. It's like, no, save that for if and when you have a child. That's where that thing goes.
that is the best advice ever.
Put
This
it
is the
there.
best.
Like that is what you save that gift
Yeah,
for. You save that gift to believe in your child every step of the way, you know, like because you sort of like will these things for your kids in a way where you don't want to force anything on them that isn't right for them, you know, in terms of what they want out of their life, but just in terms of just like becoming a person, you
yeah,
know, figuring out how to like cook and clean and take care of yourself and function in the world. All those things
yeah,
require your parents to like believe it out of you, you know?
yeah.
And so I felt like when I did have a child, I was like, oh, this thing that I thought I needed in relationships with men was not about them. It
Not at
was
all.
about when I was going to have a kid,
Yeah.
you know? So,
It's, I often say that with just with my husband, with Eduardo, the same thing. I feel like I just can't imagine having been on this journey with anybody else.
100%.
Like no one certainly nobody that I was with before him, no matter how in love I may have felt or whatever it was, I definitely don't think I could have done any of this
Yeah.
without him,
Yeah.
because he did have, as you said, a very strong, Italian mother who did what we did and came home, was a great mom. She did it all, and so he doesn't have this weird feeling that somehow she's not there for him if she's at work. He just doesn't have that piece of insecurity at
Yeah.
all,
Yeah.
and that's a major thing. Like, it's a
Yeah.
major thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I totally agree with you. So okay, so this is going to be continued because I can talk to you for the
I
next
know. Well, we
seven
talked for
hours.
like ever at the
We have
wedding too. It was
so
like a
much. I love this.
continuation thread.
Everybody's writing. We should do a podcast together. I agree, because I love how you think. I love how awake you are. I love how clear you are. You're so well spoken, and I just love how you think. And I just feel like you're in a really, as I feel with all women that are, hitting their stride in, not their 20s.
Right.
I feel like you are like on fire. And so I'm so happy for you. And I hope that whatever 2025 brings, which will be an abundance of, most importantly, health and peace and all beautiful stuff for you and your beautiful family. But do you guys have any holiday plans?
Yeah,
Anything that's
actually, we're hosting my family and some friends for Christmas here. And then we're going to do a little bit of traveling to be able to see Jerry's family right after Christmas. So
great?
it's, it's always that balancing act of
Yeah,
we want to see everybody, but everybody's so spread out. So we've actually done quite a bit of traveling this December. We went and traveled to see his dad. We're going to travel to see his mom. We went to see my brother and his wife and their family in San Antonio earlier. So we're doing our best to kind of like to get all those family touch points. And like, again, that's just something that's really important to both of us. So we're getting there. How about you?
the same. We have family here, so we're hosting, and then we're just going to take a little ski trip, and then we'll be back because I then have to get into heavy rehearsals, and then we go up in January. So it's my head's a bit spinning because I feel there's a lot of learning that's going on right now, which I love and it's challenging, but I'm also excited to just have a couple weeks of downtime and just cuddle my kids. My daughter came home from
Yeah,
college. We're going to have just a little, some cozy family time. So I'm looking
it'll
forward to it.
be
Yeah.
the best way to start the year. I mean, that's how I started 2024, was doing a play at the Goodman Theater, and it
Yes.
was, it was intense and it was amazing and it was, terrifying but great and
Good.
so rewarding. But it's a wonderful way to start the year. So I'm
Good.
excited for you. What's
Thank
the
you,
name of
my
the play?
dear. It's the Seagull. It's
Oh, you're
Chekhov's The
doing the
Seagull.
seagull. That's right. You told me
Yes.
that. Oh, I'm so excited to
Yeah.
see that.
Yes, so
So
I
excited.
will reach out to you guys and have you come. Um, but anyway, we didn't even talk about all like your work stuff. So we're having to do part two, but I
Oh,
there
good.
were a
That's
bunch
the
of
boring
questions
stuff.
about directing Yellow Jackets that people were asking. So,
Yes.
there's
Well, what I
so
can
many.
say quickly is just yellow. I directed 2 of the episodes of season 3. It premieres on Valentine's
Oh, great.
Day on Showtime. I love season 3. I mean, I've loved all of Yellow Jackets, but I think season 3 is really spectacular. That cast is incredible. And then I am going to be in season 3 of The Night Agent on Netflix, so I'll be working on
Great.
that. Yeah, so I
Congratulations.
start thank you. Yeah, so I'm very excited. It's nice because I am in such a flow with directing right now, and so it's always a tricky balance, and I love directing so much, so it's hard to say yes to longer acting jobs. But this is only a 6-month commitment,
Great.
so it felt like the kind of commitment I could make. It's not like 6 years or 10
Right.
years. It was like, okay, I can go it's really 5 months. I can go shoot this in 5 months and then be available to go back to directing all the projects that I love so much. So yeah, so it should work out pretty well. There is a directing gig that I really want to do that is like, the dates are so precarious. So right now we're like, I'm like, please, universe, let us work those
Oh,
dates out, So
okay. Well,
yeah,
we'll
so
manifest it.
we'll see.
Manifest it for the
Yeah,
new year. It's on the
yeah,
resolution list of the things to come.
yeah.
I believe it will all happen for you. You're in a flow. Stay in it.
Thank you.
And also children and our commitment to our families also, I do believe, brings abundance. And
Yeah,
we have to get off this treadmill of thinking that if I don't just do every single thing, somehow nothing's going to happen for me. It's not true. I genuinely believe that we just have to, keep our feet on the ground and stay committed to our priorities in that moment. And sometimes it is, so all those things it's all going to come. I
yeah.
totally believe it. So
Well, I
thank
can't
you,
wait
my
to
dear.
come see your play.
Thank you. And thank you for your time today. And
Of
lots of
course,
love to you and,
anytime.
and everybody and your whole family.
Happy
Thank
holidays.
you.
Bye to
Bye.
everybody who
Thank you
joined
all
us.
for
Bye,
joining
guys.
today. Thanks for hanging in. Bye.